Hank Brian Marvin, also known as Hank B. Marvin, is an English musician, a multi-instrumentalist, as well as a vocalist best known as lead guitarist for The Shadows. The group, which primarily performed instrumentals, was a backing band for Cliff Richard. Marvin has a distinctive guitar sound and appearance, primarily using a clean sound with distinctive echo and vibrato giving a dreamy effect. Personal life: he was born Brian Robson Rankin in Newcastle upon Tyne, England. As a child, he played banjo and piano. After hearing Buddy Holly, he decided to learn the guitar. He chose the name Hank Marvin while launching his career. The name is an amalgamation of his childhood nickname, Hank, which he used to differentiate himself from friends also named Brian, and Marvin Rainwater, a country and western singer. When Marvin was 16, he traveled with his Rutherford Grammar School friend, Bruce Welch, to London, where he met Johnny Foster, Cliff Richard's manager, at the Two Eyes Coffee Bar in Soho. Foster was looking for a guitarist for Richard's tour of the UK, and Marvin joined provided there was a place for Welch. Foster had been looking for guitarist Tony Sheridan at the Two Eyes, but he encountered Marvin. Marvin and Welch joined the Drifters, as Richard's group was then known. Marvin met Richard for the first time at a nearby Soho tailor's shop, where Richard was having a fitting for a pink stage jacket. The Drifters had their first rehearsal with Richard at the Webb family home in Sheshunt, Hertfordshire. His first wife was Beryl, with whom he had 4 children. Dean, born 1962, twins Peter and Paul, born 1963, and Thalia, born 1966. Dean died from pneumonia in 1997. He is currently married to Carol, with whom he had 2 children. Thalia, born 1973, and Ben, born 1975. Since 1986, Marvin has lived in Perth, Western Australia. He has made impromptu appearances on stage when musician friends visit the area, such as in February 2013 when Richard held a concert at St Alfred Winery. He is a Jehovah's Witness. Marvin runs a recording studio, Nerbrum Studios, part of Shboom Studios in Tiverton Street, Perth, owned by Trevor Spencer and Gary Taylor. In London, Hank Marvin is Cockney rhyming slang for starvin'. This slang was referenced in a 2012 television advertisement for Matesson's Meat Company. Influence: Marvin influenced many guitarists, including George Harrison, Eric Clapton, David Gilmour, Brian May, Mark Knopfler, Peter Frampton, Steve Howe, Roy Wood, Tony Iommi, Pete Townshend, Ritchie Blackmore and Jeff Beck. In Canada, Cliff and the Shadows had top 10 hits, especially from 1961 to 1965. Canadian guitarists Randy Bachman and Neil Young credit Marvin as influential. Solo career: Marvin also had a solo career. His first critically lauded self-titled solo album of instrumentals, which featured guitar set to orchestrated backing, was released in 1969 following the first disbanding of The Shadows in late 1968. The single Saka taken from this topped the singles chart in New South Wales, Australia. His solo career was then suspended due to Shadows reunions, first for a Far East tour and live album in 1969, then a studio album in 1970 and again in the early 70s. He has experimented with styles and material, doing some purely instrumental albums, some with mostly vocals, one with only acoustic guitars and one with a guitar orchestra. In 1970, Marvin and Welch formed Marvin, Welch and Farah, a vocal harmony trio which failed to appeal to Shadows fans or to contemporary music fans. They became Marvin and Farah for a vocal album in 1973 and then reverted to the Shadows in late 1973, for the instrumental Rockin' with Curly Leads album. The Shadows came second for the United Kingdom in the 1975 Eurovision Song Contest. Marvin wrote Driftin', Geronimo, Spider Juice, I Want You to Want Me for the Shadows, and The Day I Met Marie. He co-wrote Richard's 1960 hit, Gee Whiz It's You with Ian Samwell, with Welch, Brian Bennett, and John Rostill. He wrote hits for Richard, including On the Beach, I Could Easily Fall in Love with You, Time Drags By, and In the Country. In 1969 and 1970 he teamed with Richard for two Cliff and Hankett singles, his own song, Throw Down a Line, and The Joy of Living, while Richard also had a hit with his ecology song, Silvery Rain. In 1977, Marvin played lead guitar on Roger Daltrey's third solo album, One of the Boys, on the tracks Parade and Leon. He co-wrote Olivia Newton-John's 1977 hit Am with John Farrar and Don Black, and produced albums for the British personality Des O'Connor. In 1988, Marvin collaborated with French keyboardist and composer Jean-Michel Jarre on the track London Kid, on Jarre's Revolutions album, and was a guest in the Jarre's Destination Docklands concert at London's Royal Victoria Dock. Jarre said the Shadows' success had influenced him and led to his decision to devote his career to instrumental music. In 1992, Duane Eddy guested on Marvin's album Into the Light on the track Pipeline. Marvin and the Shadows reformed for a 2004 final tour, and a 2005 European tour was also organized. Marvin duetted twice with French guitarist Jean-Pierre Dainla on his 2007 and 2010 albums, both top 10 hits and certified gold. Their two singles hit the iTunes charts in France, Norway, Finland and Germany. Marvin also participated on one of his DVDs and wrote the foreword for Dainla's book about the Fender Stratocaster. While Welch and Bennett became the Officers of the Order of the British Empire and the 2004 Queen's Birthday Honours List for services to music, Marvin declined for personal reasons. Early career groups: 1956 a Euro Riverside skiffle group, a Crescent City skiffle group, Marvin, John Tate, Derek Johnson, Joe Rankin, Mal Malarkey, and Howard Muir. 1956 a Euro 1957 a Euro The Railroaders, Marvin, Welch, George Williams, Jim. 1956 a Euro 1957 a Euro The Railroaders, Marvin, Welch, Eddie Silver, George Williams, and Jimmer. 1958 a Euro The Vipers, live concert, Wally Hutton, Johnny Booker, Hank Marvin, Jay Harris, and Johnny Pilgrim. 1958 a Euro The Five Chesternuts, 7 inches single a Euro, Jerry Hurst, Marvin, Welch, Neil Johnson, and Pete Chester, UK solo tours. 1994 a Euro with Brian Bennett, Ben Marvin, Warren Bennett, Mark Griffiths. 1995 a Euro with Ben Marvin, Warren Bennett, Mark Griffiths, Matthew Letley. 1997 a Euro with Ben Marvin, Warren Bennett, Mark Griffiths, Matthew Letley. 1998 a Euro with Ben Marvin, Warren Bennett, Mark Griffiths, Matthew Letley. 2000, with Ben Marvin, Warren Bennett, Mark Griffiths, Peter May. 2002 a Euro with Ben Marvin, Warren Bennett, Mark Griffiths, Fergus Gerrand. Production credits: Spaghetti Junction Works Nice a Euro If You Can Get It Step Right Up Columbia DB 8935. Des O'Connor a Euro Another Side Des O'Connor a Euro LP a Euro NSPL 18559. Flair a Euro Stop Look and Listen a Euro LP a Euro MLP 15611. Flair a Euro Fair a Euro LP a Euro CC 227324. Flair a Euro Fair Play a Euro LP a Euro CC 327224. Duets and guest appearances: 1972, Spaghetti Junction Works Nice a Euro If You Can Get It Step Right Up Columbia DB 8935. 1976, Evita Guitar on Buenos Aires. 1977, Dennis Waterman album. 1977, Roger Daltrey One of the Boys album a Euro Guitar on Parade, and Leon. 1978, Des O'Connor Another Side of Des O'Connor album. 1979, Wings Back to the Egg album a Euro Rockestra theme, and So Glad to See You Here. 1982, British Electric Foundation Music of Quality and Distinction Volume 1, Guitar on Anyone Who Had a Heart with Sandy Shaw and It's Over with Billy Mackenzie. 1983, Tracy Ullman You Broke My Heart in 17 Places album, Guitar on Move Over Darling, and You Broke My Heart in 17 Places. 1983, Leo Sayer Have You Ever Been in Love album, guitar on Don't Wait Until Tomorrow. 1984, Shakin' Stevens Teardrop single. 1985, Dire Straits plays Going Home, with the band. As a special guest at Live at Wembley, 1986, Cliff Richard and the Young Ones Living Doll, 1988, Jean-Michel Jarre Revolution's guitar on London Kid, 1989, Jean-Michel Jarre Destination Docklands, guitar on London Kid, and Rendezvous 4, 1995, Alan Jones A Shadow in Time album, guest on title track A Shadow in Time, 1998, Jane MacDonald You're My World single, 2004, The Strat Pack, guitar on The Rise and Fall of Flingel Bunt, Sleepwalk, and Apache, 2005, Richard Holley I'm Absolutely Hank Marvin, B-side of Cole's Corner single, 2007, Peter Frampton Fingerprints album, guitar on My Cup of Tea, 2007 Jean-Pierre Dane Nervon Plus Blues Jam Session on DVD, 2008 Jason Donovan Let It Be Me on Dreamboats and Petticoats album, 2008 Le Quecum Bar Patrons Stars of Gypsy Swing, 2010 Jean-Pierre Dane Lem Appeal. In addition to the above, Marvin also plays guitar on the following tracks of library music. Recorded for Bruton Music, Fighter Plane on Top of the Range, Conquest of Space on Grandiose Impressive Panoramic, Human Desert on Human Desert, Discography. Singles, B, A Euro Vocal, Studio and Live Albums, 1969 Hank Marvin No. 14, 1977 Hank Marvin Guitar Syndicate, 1982 Words and Music No. 66, 1983 All Alone with Friends, 1992 Into the Light No. 18, 1993 Heartbeat No. 17, 1995 Hank Plays Cliff No. 33, 1996 Hank Plays Holly No. 34, 1997 Hank Plays Live No. 71, 1997 Plays the Music of Andrew Lloyd Webber No. 41, 2000 Marvin at the Movies No. 17, 2002 Guitar Player No. 10, 2007 Guitar Man No. 6, 2013 Django's Castle, 2014 Hank No. 8, compilation albums, 1987 Would You Believe It? Plus, 1994 The Best of Hank Marvin and the Shadows No. 19, 1995 Handpicked, 1997 The Very Best of Hank Marvin and the Shadows The First 40 Years No. 56, 1998 Another Side of Hank Marvin, 2001 The Singles Collection The 80s and 90s Hank Marvin and the Shadows, 2004 Shadowing the Hits, 2004 Guitar Ballads, 2007 Hank Marvin and the Shadows Play the 60s, 2008 The Solid Gold Collection, see also. List of guitarists, list of people from Newcastle upon Tyne. References. External links, Hank Marvin at AllMusic.